Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And today I want to talk about Sony's just announced FX9 dedicated interchangeable lens video camera and the FEC 16-35T 3.1 autofocusing manual focus cine lens. Yeah, you heard that right. And their Venice Cine camera, the near mythical, almost unicorn-like a7s III, the Panasonic SH1, the Canon C500 Mark II, maybe the Sony A9 II. But before I do, some quick announcements. First, we only have one spot left for our Streets of New York 2 street photography workshop, sponsored by Hasselblad and B&H, beginning October 20th. If you're interested, please hop over to 3bmep.com Streets 2 while you can to check it out and sign up. Really, it's going to be great. Next, our photo walk in New York City, October 5th, is already sold out. Well, filled because it's free. Yay! But if you'd really like to join us, and Claudia and I would love to have you, please go over to Scott Kelby's worldwidephotowalk.com and sign on to the waiting list anyway. A few spots usually open up at the last minute. Speaking of which, guys, a non-gender specific term of endearment, if any of you are already signed up but can't make it, please do remove your name ASAP so someone else can go. Thank you. Finally, Fuji Love Live. I'll be giving a talk there. It's also in New York, the weekend of October 12th. The subject is Trolls, Tribes, and Transformation. It's all about social media. As I've said before, this is definitely a Fujifilm fan event, and my friend Tomasz has put together a lovely group of presenters at a fabulous venue. I'm excited to meet them, and you too. Check it out at FujiLove.com/FujiLoveLive-2019. Okay, back to the FX9, which we saw in the metal last week at Sony HQ in New York. Simply put, the FX9 is an operationally refined, full-frame version of Sony's workhorse interchangeable lens dedicated video camera, the FS7 II, with the autofocusing chops of Sony's alpha hybrid cameras, including IAF, the color science of, and with the addition of an extension unit, the ability to record 16-bit RAW like Sony's top-end Venice Cine camera, but in 4K, recording internally up to DCI 10-bit 422 60p, hold that thought, not 6K. Using, in any case, a new 19-megapixel dual native ISO backside illuminated sensor, which is fascinating. On the one hand, even with a $2,000 bump over the FS7 II, bringing the FX9 body-only price to $11,000, 13.5 with their proven 28-135 f4 autofocusing, call it Cine style power zoom lens, and then another $2,500 on top of that for the extension unit, Sony has just dramatically lowered the price of their entry point to Netflix standard shooting. And undercut Canon's just announced $16,000 C500 Mark II, in theory at least, in terms of RAW recording, perhaps autofocus too. Probably not ergonomics, though they have been improved on the FX9. We will see soon enough. On the other hand, Sony has also, maybe, just as dramatically raised the price of their answer to Panasonic's Cinecentric S1H, which could be really, really smart. Because while the S1H records up to 6K 60p internally, though at 60p for now, it's in Super 35 mode like the FX9 will be, both promising full-frame 60p in future firmware updates, and will record 12-bit RAW, also enabled in firmware at a later date. It seems unlikely that Sony will allow a, $3,000, $3,500, $4,000, or even $5,000 a7s III using what is in all probability the sensor of the FX9 to undercut the FX9 not only on the basis of price, but recording capability. Now, if I'm right, this implies that Sony would, by choice or necessity, surrender the full-frame resolution hybrid battle to Panasonic while providing an incentive to move upmarket to a dedicated video camera, or, if you choose to think of it this way, down to a 4K only a7s III for now. Which, hold that thought, brings us to a few other items. First, the other product of particular interest to us last week, Sony's 16 to 35 millimeter T3.1 autofocusing cine lens, their first foray into what I'll call uncompromised cine glass. Second, a contemplation of the point at which hybrid cameras surrender too much to dedicated video cameras in such things as heat management, power management, port configurations, internal neutral density filters, audio, etc. And third, a contemplation of the point at which, even for those of us with the eyes of photographers, achieving resolution parity with stills cameras is not as important as A, achieving bit depth parity. Remember that stills from the highest spec digital medium format cameras are captured in 16 bits. Remember, too, how small the visible differences have been between 8-bit and 10-bit video here on YouTube. You have to ask yourself, how much better will 12-bit RAW likely be over 10-bit here on YouTube as well? And ask yourself, how much better will 16-bit RAW likely be over 12? B, having manageable workflow because 6K is a whole other level of hurt, both in terms of storage and processing. And C, availing one's self of autofocusing that is better than the best human focus puller, at least in certain circumstances, without sacrificing the option of having an expert craftsman on set when nuance, anticipation, and experience trump speed. Though, let me also put in a placeholder here to tell you that for all of the technology that is flowing between the FX9 and the Alpha series, the most important thing not being carried over to the FX9 is IBIS. Yeah, hold that thought too. Let's take each of these in turn. Now, when it comes to Sony's entry into serious cineglass, you might raise an eyebrow and ask, are you friggin' kidding me? There's already more than enough cineglass out there. Cooke, Leica, Zeiss, Canon, Sigma, Atlas, you name your brand. I understand. I might agree with you. The thing of it is, the FEC is, as I've mentioned, twice already, an autofocusing manual focus lens, and I think this just might usher in a huge reordering of the cine lens market. I say this for two reasons. One, forget about autofocus. Sony has already demonstrated extraordinary lens design, manufacturing prowess, and optical performance with a slew of new full-frame lenses. The most relevant being the 16 to 35 2.8 G Master, released just over 2 years ago. This is the same optical design rehoused in the 16 to 35 T3.1 with an optional removable power zoom controller. It also happens to be the same optical design which outperforms most equivalent field of view primes. Speaking of primes, also think about the primes Sony has released since the 16 to 35, the 24 1.4, 135 1.8, even the little 35 1.8 just released, all full frame, all lightweight, all extraordinary optically, all built for stills and video AF. I see the 16 to 35 T3.1 as Sony testing new waters. We already know it will offer extraordinary technical performance, probably at a bargain price compared to the most established names. I expect it will meet or exceed the competition on, say, MTF charts, if not on the intangibles of character. But I could be wrong, especially about character. Wouldn't that be a kick in the head to the cine lens market? Still, how bound by tradition is the cine lens market? What are the actual differences in character and technical performance? What are DP's sensitivities to price, especially in a renter's market? Sensitivities to color rendition. Will the Sony autofocusing cine lens line, if Sony chooses to build it out, obliterate the rental market with prices aggressive enough, optical and AF performance good enough, that the next generation of DPs chooses to buy instead of rent? Because, two, yeah, it's all about autofocus. I don't think there's a focus puller alive who can consistently nail shots at f2, let alone 1.4 or 1.2. If the FX9 in combination with the new Sony AF Cineglass performs at the same level as, say, the current A7 III with the 16 to 35 G Master, it will make a visible difference on the screen. And I guess directors and DPs alike would therefore want it. Next, hybrids versus dedicated cameras. Let's start here, candidly. Sony's older heat management problems with the Alpha series hybrids are well known, and while they've made great strides, even lifting the recording limit from the A6400, which is why we bought it, A6600, and the full-frame A7R4, hybrids, Sony or not, still won't be as reliable as dedicated fan-cooled cameras like the FX9. Or actually Panasonic's Lumix S1H, which, given Sony's business savvy, and therefore likely reticence to invest in an all-new body in this market at this time, makes the probability of an A7S III offering 6K or adding the FX9's internal electronic variable neutral density filter to an A7S III more remote than some of us might wish. I'd like to be wrong, especially about that internal ND, but I don't think I am, especially since Sony execs told me directly that for now, it's simply too difficult to incorporate that internal variable ND and IBIS at the same time in the much larger FX9. Though I'm going to insert a footnote here for broader discussion another time that when you think about it, well, you can argue Sony does, or at least ought, to have a fundamentally new, bigger body in the development pipeline for two reasons. It enables what an A7S III needs above all else, which is robust heat management, and I'd argue what an A9 II needs above all else for the 2020 Olympic Games. Reliability, shooting comfort, and improved workflow, as well as heat management. I'm talking about, for example, a lot of continuous high-speed shooting. The same kind of, say, built-in dual-stream networking of the FX9, they might want to cram into an A9 II. That would allow pro sports photographers at the games to stream their photos in real time continuously to their networks, magazines, or agencies, and more higher capacity batteries and a new, bigger battery grip powering all of this, allowing 3 batteries on board simultaneously. In either case, Olympics or high-end cine shooting, it seems a solid strategy to me to refine what Sony already has and price with more sophistication and opportunism to nichier markets. Again, for now. Back to a video-centric hybrid, A7S III, because I think more of you will be interested in what the FX9 portends for it. If you're shooting to the standards of Netflix, time is more costly than gear. 6K is not yet required, and you want utter reliability and the least futzing possible. When you add in kitting out a camera for a high-end production, there's way more reliability and way less futzing with an FX9-style camera than an A7 anything. The nice thing is, with the same E-mount as the Alpha and FS series you may have already been using, it's a dawdle to preserve that investment of glass by renting or investing in an FX9, with the benefit of the autofocus you're probably used to as well. And, of course, the ability to adapt everything from PL glass to vintage photography lenses. Which feeds into our third point, finishing off for now the answer to the question of the best strategy for responding to the S1H. Matching its spec for spec, or coming at it simultaneously from above and below. Higher with the FX9, which will be able to shoot 16-bit RAW and have a dedicated cam's other goodness, as I've already articulated, and lower with the future A7S III offering superior autofocus with lighter storage and processing demands while competing head-on with the S1 or S1R, or Nikon Zs. What would you rather have? You could even make the argument that 6K resolution is not a good thing for cinema-level capture, at least as far as actors and actresses are concerned. Think about it. A century ago, some movie stars actually demanded in writing that they only be shot with Cook lenses because the glass made them look so good. I don't think it was because of any magical properties or resolution. Rather, it was because, setting aside very clever marketing, the glass was sharp and contrasty enough where it needed to be, softer and more flattering when required as well. And when they weren't, there was always the old nylon stocking over the lens trick. Think about just a couple of years ago. The second year the Academy Awards were shown on TV in full HD, never mind 4K, electronic filters were already in place to soften the lines, wrinkles, and blemishes that even Hollywood stars have, of course, just like the rest of us. Though, paradoxically, This is the one reason why I would shoot in 6K and why we shoot and render in 4K today. I want to see a person's experience and character writ large on that person's face. Even mine with dog hair all over me. It's called real life, and I think we do a disservice to everyone when we try to be or portray ourselves as other than who we are. Anyway, with that digression, let's call it a day for now, at least until we have these things in hand, and close with a moment of silence for two extraordinary photographers who left us this week, one of whom made this very point about keeping it real. Robert Frank, Peter Lindbergh, you each put a small ding in the universe. You will be missed. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below. You guys continue to be just incredible, knowledgeable, inspiring, funny. I mean, you're a joy, truly. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Grab one or both of our new Hold That Thought t-shirts you wanted us to put up at our new 3BMEPthreadless.com store. Support our work by using our affiliate links down below in the show notes, dropping us coffee money via our PayPal link down below in the show notes, or even better than that, we invite you to become a patron of our work over at Patreon. Link down below. We've created our Patreon page because we are stoked to bring you not only gear reviews, but with our What Were You Thinking and Good World Gone Bad series, historical, educational, artistic morsels, and longer form conversations, not interviews, with world-class photographers, curators, gallery owners, keepers of the legacy, folks like Elliot Irwitt, Anya Sear, Mark Lubell, Ethelene Staley, and friends like Brian Smith, Paul Giroux, Nino Rakicevic, and more. We'd really like you to join us to deliver this kind of content regularly. Your support on Patreon will really help us ramp it up. In which case, as always, we thank you for it. That's it. For Three Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.